welcome back to another episode of the Who Are You to Lead Anyway podcast, where we dive deep into mastering the skills needed to navigate leadership and life with more ease and less angst. This is episode 87. For those of you that have just found me and my work, I am Cynthia Jameson, leadership, life, and career growth coach, and your host. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm happy to be here. How are you doing today? Today, as I'm recording this, the universe has a special treat in store for us, the solar eclipse. This event reminds us of the power of transformation and renewal. So it's an opportunity to embrace the energy of the eclipse as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always light waiting to shine through. I truly believe that. So I invite you to just think about that. And it's a little bit related to the episode we're going to get into today. Now, before I do that, back in October actually of 2022, when I was dreaming about creating this podcast for you, and my brain was getting in the way all of the time by telling me I had nothing valuable to share or who's going to listen to this. It's like, who are you anyway to be able to have a podcast? One of the exercises that I undertook was to create a list of over 100 things which I wish I would have known as a leader. So today I want to talk about one of them. I have talked about many of them on the podcast. There's still a long list and it's even longer because I keep adding to it. But one of the things that I want to talk about today is that every strength can help and hinder you. And the reason this is so important and the reason that I wish that I would have known it is because as a leader, we often underestimate the impact of our strengths and their shadow sides with regards to our leadership effectiveness. Now, the biggest misconception about strengths is the belief that they're always beneficial and that their shadow side, the darker aspect of it, are so inconsequential. This is the piece specifically that I wish I would have known about. Now, understanding the dynamic nature of our strengths is crucial because what we might let me think about how to best say this, because what may be a strength in one situation can morph into a liability in another situation, depending on the context and the circumstance. Now, another blind spot that I often notice is without self-awareness, we risk amplifying our shadows. And when I say we, I'm putting myself in here with you because, of course, we're all human. We're all doing the best that we can. But when we amplify our shadow side, that can have detrimental effects on us as a leader, on the teams that we are a part of, on the organizations that we choose to work for. And so, as I said, this is something that I wish I would have known that I only truly began to understand when I began coaching leaders. And now that I've coached over 300 leaders, I understand it so deeply. In coaching, we focus on strengths, those things that we do that are so natural to us that it's a talent for us. It's a gift that we have. And the reason that we do that is because when you think about the things that are really natural for you, that can be really, really powerful for personal and professional growth. And when you focus on really honing in or dialing in or balancing out whatever metaphor works for you, how those specific strengths help or hinder, it's like the wind beneath your sails, right? Or the wind beneath your wings. Again, whatever metaphor serves you. But the growth that you have then is much more expansive versus when you focus on the things you don't like to do or when you don't prefer to do them. There's a reason why they're weak. You don't prefer to do them. They're just traits. That's all. And you can totally focus there and have some improvement, but not as much as you will if you take a strengths-based approach, which is why we do that in coaching. So you might be asking, how do we navigate this complexity? So the short and complex answer is by engaging in self-reflection and approaching our strengths with curiosity. We can more effectively mitigate the shadow sides when we see them. In order to see them, you have to be willing to look at them. So I'm going to share one of my strengths and the shadow side and how it showed up in my HR career and how it shows up as a coach. And then I'm also going to share with you a recent client session because I think you're just really going to appreciate the sense of the nuances and the different impacts that these can have. So if you follow me on social media, you might notice, or you might have noticed, Two of my strengths are in some of the recent photos that I have taken because when I actively manage the shadow side, and trust me, I do, they are my superpowers. And so persistence, determination are the two that I'm referring to. If you don't follow me, I don't know what's happening. I'm not sure why. And I would love to invite you into a deeper connection and welcome you further into my world over on Instagram. I share more over there than I do on LinkedIn or any other platform because of the options that it provides. So, the strength that I want to talk about with you today is persistence. So, my ability to persist, to stay the course, to keep going, to keep doing the thing, whatever the thing is, even in face of all of the adversity, is a strength of mine. To persist is so natural for me. I'm really not sure who I would become without it. It's literally my DNA. Now, this strength has led me not only to achieve many of my goals, both personally and professionally, but to exceed what I thought was possible. I'll give you some examples. This strength of persistence helped me when I relocated back in 2012 from New Brunswick to Ontario, Canada, with no friends, family, or support. I moved there for a promotion, and that strength really served me well. This coaching business that I have, it was intended to be my post-retirement plan. And here I am doing it a full decade ahead of plan. I'd never thought that I'd be a podcaster, and here I am. I used to tell, so this is kind of funny. I used to tell myself the story all the time that I was the turtle and everybody else was the hare, but it turns out that wasn't true. And it turns out it wasn't helpful to tell myself that. So now I love to play with this. So if you would invite me into your world and just keep listening, if you saw my persistence as a person, here's what you'd see. You'd see a human who embodies a sense of tenacity and perseverance, always pushing forward with purpose and resolve. It's like I have this like can do attitude. This dedication inspires others with an intention of serving and being a source of motivation and encouragement to those around me that I can figure it out, and I will. And I know this because people tell me it. They tell me about it myself, which I so appreciate. Now, amidst this unwavering perseverance and determination, there is a softer side. There is a willingness to listen, to learn, and to adapt myself. And understanding that persistence is not just about sheer force, but also about resilience, being flexible, and with a desire and an ability to endure and grow through all of the parts of the journey. Like I know that life is for me, all of it. It's all a playground. It's all for me. It's all meant to teach me something, to give me something, to grow me in some way. So, because I've been on to myself for a few years now, I want to rewind time and show you what this looked like specifically. So, as an HR professional, this persistence showed up as helpful when I was following up on employee issues. And as the sole leader in this function, leaders were also my employees that I would follow up with and follow up for and advocate for. So, what this looked like specifically was I ensured that all of the employee issues were addressed promptly and thoroughly. I did not let things slip through the cracks. And that's something I loved about myself because it was super important for me to ensure a fair and supportive workplace. And that was how I could contribute to that. And I'll just say, like, I will never forget one meeting I walked into where someone was saying, I literally walked in on a conversation about myself. The only person that I always email and that I always receive a response back from is Cynthia. And I remember thinking to myself, like I was on the outside of the room by the door, thinking, head like against the wall, do I? And later on, I went back to check, and it was true, which was just, it was just an interesting awareness that I hadn't had. So, another way persistence showed up as helpful was advocating for employee well being, pushing for and leading initiatives and programs like employee engagement, leadership development, skills development, new systems, new payroll systems, new time systems, employee and family assistance programs, fair compensation, including offers of employment and severance agreements, reporting safety incidents. You get the idea, but it was all the people things in service of promoting a healthy and engaged environment, which was super important to me. Now, when I met with resistance. And trust me, I met a lot of resistance. I grounded myself into the vision, the mission, and the values of the organizations that I worked for whenever possible because they were also aligned to my own. Otherwise, I wouldn't have worked there. And this also gave me the ability to ground myself into my why, to remind myself of my why. I have always been a people focused person, a people focused human resource professional, and now a coach. And I worked with others who were in their resistance in order to seek and understand the resistance. What was it about? What was their concern? What was their worry? And then work with them to a point of clarity about what was in it for them as individuals and come to a place of alignment. Because here's what I've learned about people: if you don't answer their questions about what the change is that you're wanting to make, what's in it for them to come along with the change, they are going to be hanging on the back bumper of change for a very long time. So it's always been important for me as an ambassador of HR to ensure policies and procedures were being applied fairly and that employee welfare was a top priority. And I want to transition now as a coach. So, as a coach, this persistence shows up as helpful in service of my clients' progress. I help my clients stay focused on their goals. I help them overcome the obstacles that they're having, and I help them ensure that they stay on track to the things that they define as important and that really truly matter to them, for them. As their guide on the side, I partner with them, which means we're in it together. I encourage their growth. I work with them individually to instill belief and work with them to build their confidence, to build their resilience with them through the tools and techniques that we find that suit and work for them, which empowers them to own their own career, to own their own leadership style, to own their own life, to put themselves in the driver's seat. Here's what I know about my clients, but what they learn in working with me. I know that they are creative, resourceful, and whole, but they learn that as they coach with me. Because in the coaching with me, they are able to get themselves to and find that inner resourcefulness, that find that inner self sufficiency, that can get themselves to a place where they have agency and they have agency to decide for themselves what they want in life, what they want to think and feel about themselves as leaders in this life that they have. This, people, this is my definition of stepping into your personal power. And that's what I help my clients do. So now let's talk about the shadow side of my persistence. Can you tell I'm persistent? As you might imagine, being persistent evokes an image of heads down and focused work, which can lead me to dismiss feedback or overlook alternative viewpoints. So, when I am overly fixated on my own idea, or my own solution. So there's a little bit of ego in that. I can miss valuable insights from other people. And because I'm aware of this, there are people that I trust immensely. Right now, this is a reminder because I'm now working as an entrepreneur, right? So I trust certain people immensely and I check in with them to get that perspective that I value so much. Now, another shadow side of my persistence is it can overwhelm. And I think this is actually, I don't know if this is just a thought error or not, or if it would be true, but persistence can overwhelm other people. I feel like it would be true, especially when persistence shows up in the way that it did for me. So, following up or seeking information in order to do what needed to be done, which can create stress and frustration for other people. So let me share how this played out for me specifically. So, in my last corporate job, while I was in a leadership role supporting multiple organizations, I was an individual contributor, which was a transition for myself and my brain to make in and of itself, because I was a leader since my 20s. So back in 2017, I had just started working for the nuclear industry, which was new industry to me. And the nuclear industry is complex and procedural based, which for my style and approach is not I mean, that's a good fit from that perspective. So at the time, I was leading a large scale change effort for an organization that had hundreds of employees within it and dozens of leaders, all vying for my time, my attention, and priority. And there was a lot of in a management of change, there's a lot to take care of. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot to be thoughtful and intentional about. So in order to attempt to learn what I needed to learn because again, I was new, to do what I needed to do. There were so many things that I didn't know. And my persistence showed up as someone I was asking lots of questions. I was seeking lots of information. I was working to understand from an information perspective what I could do, what I couldn't do, who I needed to see to get what I needed to get done, which led me to receiving some really specific feedback that my persistence and my urgency, my sense of urgency, was having a negative impact on my peers. Now, I have to tell you, I have my hand on my heart as I say this. I was so shocked because no one had ever given me this feedback before. And I'd worked 30 years in the HR profession. So it felt like, for me, it actually felt like death from a thousand cuts because it wasn't my intention. And at the time, I will say I did take it personally. I have to tell you, there are so many times that I wish I would have had the knowledge and the tools and the skills that I have today. And also, I know that that was a stop along the way. That was a stop along my journey, and everything is for me. So enter the softer side of persistence. With some reflection, I learned a few things. So while it was true that I never received this feedback before, there was truth in the feedback. And there were multiple factors at play, including culture fit, which isn't a justification, but an important aspect to consider as you think about your own strengths and these shadows that they have for yourself. So, putting myself in their shoes and looking at myself from my peers' perspective was really valuable because I could see how it could be frustration for them when they were concentrating on their work, their deliverables, to be interrupted and lose their focus from someone who didn't know and would require more time and attention to help give me the information I needed. So the workload and the expectations were particularly demanding for everyone, which isn't a problem. I'm no stranger to hard work, and neither are they. But the extra element of my, at the time, being an outsider, right, in quotes, outsider, who factually didn't know the people or have the relationships that I needed to have to get what I needed to get done, lended itself to everyone being frustrated, myself included. And so even though I did my best, I can say I wasn't set up for success. And I still have so much empathy for my former peers, for the stress and frustration that I created, and for myself. Now, not surprisingly, and this is really important, this is a nuance. At the same time, I was appreciated by the leaders and the employees I supported and advocated for, which is, again, that nuance. There's pros and cons to everything. And I went to work on finding other ways of getting work done in a more balanced way with my peers. What did that look like? It looked like scheduling time with them. It looked like letting them know ahead of time what I might need for the month coming up. Those simple things made a huge difference. So, if the experience that you're having at this moment isn't positive, this is an opportunity to just really examine your strengths for the shadow side that exists. And with that awareness, decide how to solve for them specifically. Now, as a coach, I want to talk about persistence here. Persistence can manifest itself as pushing too hard or showing up as a lack of flexibility. And because I am super aware of this, and because coaching is my livelihood and I wouldn't make any money if and it's not about the money, it's about, again, this is also coming back to the why. This is my livelihood. This is work that I love to do. And this is how I solve for that specifically as it relates to persistence. Before I work with any client, we explore what they want. What are their desires? How can I help them specifically? I share with them what it looks like to work together. I am not for everybody, and not everyone is for me. And the fit with a coach is so super important. Just imagine like you have your general practitioner, your dentist, your lawyer, your eye doctor. You want to feel like you can place your trust in them. So too, it's the same for hiring a coach. And so when clients work with me, I coach them on their goals, their obstacles, their choices, etc. All the coaching. And all the coaching from a leadership, a life, and a career perspective. And while we co create the agenda, here's a really specific and important nuance: they own it, they own their agenda. So, what this means is that they decide where we go, they decide where we don't go, because I trust that they are the subject matter expert on them. If there's an area that for them they feel is off limits or off limits right now, or they're not ready to explore it, I respect their choice because we've already talked about it. We've already talked about it. And they know that they're responsible for their choices and commitments, their actions and accountabilities. I am their coach. I am there to support them in the best way that I can while ensuring that they have a great experience. I'm not the coach who's going to pull them through towards their goals. That's their work. So that doesn't mean that when clients don't take the action they committed to take, that we don't explore what's in the way or what's come up for them, because we do. And this is why trust and confidentiality and having compassion and sharing feedback with one another is critical in coaching. Just by taking a few minutes to explore what's working, what's not, and what can be done differently, we easily get ourselves back on track. So I will say that managing the shadow side of any strength requires some self management. And for me, this is so much less now as an entrepreneur. And I know that my shadow has kept crept up. Here's how I know: when I feel resistance, when I feel frustration, I know that my shadow side of persistence and or determination are coming to visit me, because the emotions are typically the same. Those are my cues to check in. Those are my cues to zoom out, to get perspective, and to get really curious about why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And it's usually, here's what I've learned: it's my brain's need to control. Thank you, saboteur. Thank you, ego. And then my work is to consciously release that control, and re anchor myself into my values and my why. This brings up the importance of balancing this strength with empathy for myself, for others, my intuition, and my authenticity, so that I can truly connect with my clients. I can inspire them to action, which will change the world of work, one leader at a time. And of course, this is work that they're choosing to do. So, my why is so much more important than any need to control. And it's so much more important than my ego. So that's enough about me. And now I want to examine a recent client session. And because of confidentiality is super important to me, I'm going to refer to this client as James. Now, James has a super stressful job, and his top strength is problem solving. It's a really valuable asset in any leadership role. James is so adept at strategizing and finding solutions, he literally does it without knowing it, which has a favorable outcome of earning praise from his leaders for being a passionate leader, the style that he brings, and the impactful contributions that he has and that he makes for his organization. However, every strength has its shadow side. And so for James, his problem solving prowess leads him to take on too much responsibility. He finds himself getting involved in projects and issues that aren't directly his. And although it's incredibly hard for him to admit, he's created a bottleneck. He is the bottleneck, and unnecessarily delays are created for him, the team, and the organizations. So his fear of failure, both for himself and his team, which comes from his high sense of responsibility, is what drives him to intervene whenever he sees things going off track. He wants to ensure success at all costs, even if it means taking on tasks that should be delegated. But here's the thing: by swooping in to save the day, James robs the team of valuable learning opportunities, valuable growth. He prevents them from growing their skills, developing autonomy, taking ownership of the work, being agents of change. And so during our coaching sessions, he struggled with this realization. He felt trapped in a cycle. And I'm using that language on purpose because that's how he felt, trapped in a cycle of enabling his team, and he couldn't see a way out of it. So, with some coaching and for reflection, he began to see the possibilities that lay beyond the fears that he had. We explored the potential benefits of allowing his team to fail, not as a punishment, but as a learning experience. He came to understand failure is not the end, but a stepping stone to growth and improvement. Now, I want to tell you, this wasn't easy. The journey was not easy for James. He faced frustration, he faced resistance along the way. And because of this openness that he had and the trust that we'd built with one another, with each of these challenges, when he brought, like that brought with him a willingness, it brought out within him a willingness, I should say, to look at how he's contributing to the situation versus putting it under the rug, which is what he was doing before. Now we're still coaching together. So I can't see where I can't wait to see where he's going to end up. But with each session, he gains a deeper understanding of his role as a leader and is even more impactful than before because he is empowering his human resources to do their best work. And what happens for him is fascinating. He gets to spend his time leading more effectively. He gets to spend his time feeling less responsible, and he gets to feel more empowered, something he wasn't used to feeling. So, how do we discern when our strengths are helping or hindering us? So, first, we have to know what they are. And there are a few ways to find out. The first is take a few minutes and complete the VIA Strengths survey. It's free. I'll link it up in the show notes for you. Take a few minutes to do that, and you can have it, reflect on it. You can also reflect on what feedback you received about yourself and your strengths. Like people typically tell you, "Oh, I admire your persistence. I admire the fact that you never give up." And whatever it is that they say to you, if it feels true for you, you will know it because it'll feel like a well-worn piece of clothing that fits just right. I'm thinking about Goldilocks and the chairs and the porridge. Anyway, you also can do what I did. I asked a variety of people that I worked with. I think there were about 7 or 8 of them that I reached out to, and I just said what I was doing. I wanted to get clear on my strengths. I asked them what they thought I was strong at, and then when I got that information back, I looked through it all and I saw the common threads in all of the feedback. Once you have this, then it's time to check in with yourself and your willingness to confront your humanness, which shows up as our fears and our insecurities, right? We don't want to do poor work. We don't want to frustrate people. We don't want to piss people off. But only by being willing to look can we truly harness the power of our strengths while mitigating our shadows? Because otherwise the shadows are there. They're there. So I invite you to reflect on your own strengths and consider their shadow sides. Ask yourself, how does this show up as helpful? How might it show up as unhelpful? If this strength of mine was a person, what would we see it do? What insights can you gather from this type of exploration for yourself? Because how can you leverage your strengths while tempering their shadows to become a more effective leader? And I do have, before we wrap up, I have a pro coach tip. You will always know it by how it feels because it won't feel great. It'll feel terrible when you're in the shadow side. Instead of being airy and light, I'm coming back to the eclipse now. Instead of being the sun and airy and light, it's dark, it's damp, and the moon is covering the sun. So, as I wrap up this episode of Who Are You to Lead Anyway, if you would like to work with me, get in touch. All the links are in the show notes. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. This was fun. And until next week, I'm inviting you to embrace your strengths, but don't let them overshadow your growth. Until next week, take care. Have a great week. Bye. Hey there, it's Cynthia. Thanks for being a part of the Who Are You to Lead Anyway journey. Join my newsletter for exclusive updates and resources. Get a complimentary self-discovery workbook at www.cynthiajamesoncoach.ca. Your feedback shapes this show, so share your thoughts. And if you love the podcast, help spread the word. Thanks for investing in your leadership growth. Let's thrive together.